What is up, YouTube? It's Grinch, and today I've got another tier list video. Today we're going to be tiering all of the Lego Jurassic Park and Jurassic World dinosaur molds from the entire franchise. So that includes the movies, as well as Camp Cretaceous and the Legends of Isla Nublar. So let's get right into the video. Now, before I get started, I wanted to quickly thank you for watching and ask that you please like, subscribe, and join in the conversation in the comment section below. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So as you can see here, I've got all of the dinosaurs that were included in the official Jurassic World and Jurassic Park licensed Lego sets, and we are exclusively talking about the molded dinosaurs alone. I did do one thing here where I took all of the baby velociraptors or dinosaurs and I included them into one group because there were 9 of them total. So my fear was, a quarter of this tier list would be just the baby dinosaurs, and it kind of made it a little bit more difficult to read. So I just bunched them up there together as one group of dinosaurs. A lot of that is just subjective based off the color, and they're all pretty darn good, right? There's not much there to really tier, so they're all together. So let's start things out with the Dilophosaurus over here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at a few things like color, the size, as well as the mobility and movement that you can get with some of these dinosaurs. But to me, a lot of this is really going to come down to the size and the accuracy to the source material too, and just kind of there's going to be a few different aspects of what I'm kind of considering when I'm looking at these dinosaurs. And right away for me, when it comes to this first Dilophosaurus here that was in the original 2015 set, I've got to give this one, I think, a D. There's a lot of really good dinosaurs on this list, mind you, so this is definitely one of the weaker, if not one of the weakest dinosaurs here. And the reason is just the size of it. It's humongous. It's way too big. They corrected that later on. But the color, I liked the details around the ears and the face, like that, all that printing is all really good, but it's so big. And then that like vibrant green color just kind of, I don't like that. It just looks a little bit funky. It really, really pops out too. And to me, it's not like a down to earth coloring. Unlike the next one, so we have the kind of remake of the Dilophosaurus, and you can see they came up with a lot more neutral coloring here. And then what I really, really like is the coloring on the flaps there. Those look really, really good too. It's a strong dinosaur. It's the same exact mold as the other one. I think that's definitely taking it away, taking a little bit away from me. I'm going to have to put it in a B. There's good mobility here, right? It reuses that Velociraptor torso. The legs are good, but it is really, really tall. It's, 2 to 3 times larger than a minifigure, and it should really be right at the same size as a minifigure. So overall, I gotta give this one a B. It's good. There's a lot of really good things about it, but there's also some, really noticeable bad things, especially the height. And then we do have the kind of the most recent remake of the Dilophosaurus. I believe we've gotten this bad boy in 2 sets now, and I really, really like him. My only downfall here, though, is that there is no movement, but size-wise, coloring, it's pretty good. You can see they kind of were going back to that original coloring, but a more down-to-earth version of that olive green instead of a vibrant green, so I like that. I wish there was maybe a little bit more details on the actual ears. I think for all the good things the Dilophosaurus from 2018 did in terms of the printing and the quality of the printing, this one was a step back. But obviously it's a step forward in the actual size of the mold, but then you can't move any of it. The only thing you can move is the mouth, and I'm kind of going back and forth here between A and B. I really, really like this mold. I'm gonna put it just in front of the other Dilophosaurus that we got, because I do like the coloring of that Dilophosaurus a lot better, especially, on that like little ear flap there. I think that looks considerably better on the older version, but the mold itself of this newer one is good. I just can't put it into A. If it had mobility, if it had movement, and it had that really good quality of printing, I'd put it up into S. But for right now, it's going to come in as a B until they figure out a solution to give us some mobility with some of these dinosaurs. But that wraps it up for the Dilophosauruses. Let's get into the Velociraptors. Okay, so we have this kind of juniors one from the Legends of Isla Nublar, and it's a blue Velociraptor. Would you look at that? Who could that be? I like it. I really like dark blue in Lego. It's one of my favorite colors, and I really like the sand blue. But I think what really takes away from me with this one, and this might be controversial, is the dark blue legs. It looks a little bit weird to have the really dark legs on the lighter body. They just kind of stand out. It almost makes it look like he's wearing, or she is wearing, boots or socks or something. So I'm not sure if that was quite the look that they're going for, but I like the rest of this dinosaur a lot. It's just with those really dark blue arms and the dark blue legs, it does take a little bit away. I wish they were that dark tan color or maybe the sand blue color. So I'm going to put this down in a C. There's a lot of really, really good Velociraptors, as we're about to see that the competition does get quite stiff up here with the Velociraptors. So that leads us to our next one, our first officially licensed blue, and this is actually the second one that came out though, first for this tier list. It is the blue from the Fallen Kingdom sets, and there's a lot to like here. I did a full comparison of all the official blues from each movie that she was released in, and kind of teetering between an S or an A. There's some things I really like here. I love that like sand green color and the dark tan, and I love that kind of two-toned leg and the arms. It's kind of the opposite of what I was talking about with the last Velociraptor, where you can see that lighter color is on the legs, and I really like that. It stands out quite well. I like that blue stripe, and overall there is a ton that I like with this dinosaur. I think the other version of blue, the most recent one we got, definitely is slightly ahead of it, but I think this blue is maybe strong enough to give an S. I mean, there's good mobility here. It's that great Velociraptor mold. Sure, it's a little bit oversized, but all of the dinosaurs on this list for the most part are oversized compared to minifigures, or a little undersized. You know, they haven't quite got the minifigure to dinosaur scale perfect yet, but that's okay. So I can give a little bit of leniency there, unlike the Dilophosaurus that is literally the same exact size of this Velociraptor. That's just way too big in my opinion. I'm going to give this one an S. I think S is a great spot for the second version of blue that we got. Definitely a epic version. All right, so up next we have Charlie, and it's my understanding, just by looking at the source material, that I think they kind of missed with the stripes on the back, and when they did the baby versions of these dinosaurs, they fixed that a little bit. But from looking at the source material, I think Charlie's body is a little bit too green, and those accents on the top need to be more green. I think I'm gonna put Charlie right here as a B. Charlie is very, very good, but when looking at the four kind of named Velociraptors from the first movie, I think that the main body of Charlie should have been a little bit more of a kind of neutrally grayish green color, maybe an olive green color, and then that darker green could have really shined on top, but I'm just not getting that here. Unlike the next one, we have Echo, who is kind of the most, it stands out the most between those three dinosaurs in terms of color. Echo is this kind of darker nougat color, and I really like the accents, and I think of those original four, Echo was the best represented. Just looking at the source material and looking at pictures, you know, she definitely had that kind of orangish coloring with that, you know, bluish teal back, and I think that they captured her the best of those other two Velociraptors that we're talking about. And then we have the original version of blue, and I really like this version of blue. It also came with that head-mounted camera, so I left that on the picture here. I loved the kind of the little racing stripe that went down here. I know there's some issues, but it was a really, really good first start. It's just now we've had two other versions of blue that are better, in my opinion, and when you have a better version of that same dinosaur, it can't really be as an S tier, so I'm going to put it right up here in A. I think that's a good spot for it. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Delta, who came alongside Blue in that set back in 2015, the Velociraptor chase. And I'm going to put Delta here right next to Charlie. Again, I think the coloring on this should have been a little bit more gray for Delta, and then that olive green, that was kind of the distinctive difference with Delta. She was just kind of the most neutral of all the colors, and I'm not quite getting that here with the dark tan. I think the dark tan could have maybe been on the Charlie Velociraptor with that dark green, and then Delta could have maybe had like a darker gray with that olive green. I think that would have looked pretty good, but overall just a little bit of a miss here with the coloring. But we have to get a little bit picky with the Velociraptors because there's so many great options here. And then up next, we have the Velociraptor that was included, you know, the OG Velociraptor that was included in one of the few Jurassic Park sets that we got. In fact, I believe this is the only official Jurassic Park dinosaur mold that we got in any of the other sets, because the gate came with the buildable T-Rex, and then the T-Rex Bakeout also came with a buildable T-Rex. So as far as molded dinosaurs go, this is the only one that we've gotten from Jurassic Park, and I've got to put her up here in the S. This is just a really good coloring for a Velociraptor. It looks really, really proper to me. The dark brown on top with that nougat color looks great. It just looks like a clean, perfect version of the Velociraptor. Obviously, it's not named, but it's supposed to be, you know, that specific one from the first movie, which I think is pretty cool. You know, she's kind of the infamous clever girl in the movie. So I've got to give that an S tier, as well as the next version of Blue. I really like this version of Blue. I did a full comparison of them. I'm going to have to probably move it like that. I'd say I really like that kind of just plain, you know, very simple Velociraptor, you know, just the clean look, better than those two. But then of the two versions of Blue, the newest version is definitely just a little bit better than the Fallen Kingdom version, but it is very, very close. I actually really like a lot of different aspects about that Fallen Kingdom version of Blue, but the newest version of Blue, one thing I particularly like is the asymmetry in the printing. You don't really see that a lot. Where they have kind of that blue accent under the eye on one side and they don't have it on the other side. I like that. It just kind of gives Blue a little bit more of a different look, and I appreciate that. But of course, the coloring here is the most accurate of all the blues. I like, you know, they finally kind of got that nice dark blue stripe there on the back, and I think what really helps is that gray color. I do think that they should have maybe used two grays. They should have used a dark gray for the top, kind of like they did with the first version where it's that dark green. They should have made that dark gray, and then that sand green could have just been a light gray, and I think that would be the perfect color combination for Blue. But overall, the best version of Blue that we've got, narrowly, but definitely the best version, and she deserves the S tier. All right, and then we have Beta, the little tiny Velociraptor, and I'm really glad, you know, this is Blue Offspring. I'm glad that they did a separate mold for it, and they kind of set a new standard for the baby Velociraptor molds, specifically just with the shaping of it. Definitely looks really, really good compared to the other version of the baby Velociraptors that we had, although I believe this version is supposed to be a little bit older than those baby versions that we saw in Fallen Kingdom. Thus why she's a little bit bigger, and I'm glad that they didn't just cop out and do a rehash of the other baby dinosaurs. I'm gonna have to put Beta over here. We'll put her in A. The coloring, the stripe is good. They really kind of captured that Velociraptor pose. Again, there's no mobility here. This gets a little bit more tricky to do mobility with, but she is just a great little tiny mold. I'm not grading that mobility as hard here because, you know, you just understandably can't get that mobility with such a tiny dinosaur mold. So that leads us to our next group of dinosaurs, and we have all the babies. And like I said, I just kind of grouped this up into one. Otherwise, a quarter of this tier list would have been baby dinosaurs, and this is already going to be a long video. So I just wanted to group all these up into one, and a lot of that is just kind of subjective based off of the named character or the coloring itself. And I'm going to have to just give these an A. These are excellent. Close to being an S, maybe borderline A here, borderline S. I love all the diversity and the colors, right? There's just been so many different colors of these baby dinosaurs. They look great. There's so much that you can do with them. You know, they represent baby velociraptors. They could represent a compy. There's been some other licensed Lego sets that have gotten different versions of these two, the Lego Movie 2, and then I believe like Sesame Street, and I think a Batman set had just a plain one, which is cool. It's just a really good piece, and it just kind of adds just a little bit of extra life to so many different Lego builds and buildings that Lego has come, and I really appreciate that about it. But not quite that S, you know, S dinosaur for me. Definitely an A. All right, so up next we have the Therizinosaurus, and there is so much that I love about this dinosaur. The one thing, though, that is really a miss for me, the head is near perfect, the body is really good, the rest of the tail is good, but I just can't get past the claws. Especially in pictures, they look decent, but when you look at this thing in person, the claws are so wide that it actually, it almost doubles the length of the dinosaur just based off of the claws alone, and it just looks a little bit funny, and that's because they're brick built. I really wish that they did something specialized here, but the rest of this dinosaur, particularly the face, is so good. I'm gonna have to go with the B. It could be an S if those claws were really, really good, and A if those claws were better. But the claws really take away so much from this dinosaur for me, but not enough to say it's a C because the rest is so good. We have our first Triceratops on this list, and this is just an excellent version of the Triceratops. I'm gonna have to probably just give this one an A. It's got a nice neutral color. It was the first Triceratops that we had gotten in years. It was the first official Jurassic Park and World Triceratops, because there was only the one prior to that in this new updated mold. But I really like the coloring here. It's nice and simple and plain, and it's just a solid dinosaur. The legs move interchangeably. You can move the head. I think maybe the only thing that would make this a little bit better is if that tail could move, or maybe the mouth. Just having just a little bit more of movement in there would have been excellent. And then we have the next Triceratops, and I think this might just maybe be a little bit of recency bias. I really like the coloring. I like the dark red on the dark gray and the tan. I love all that, but I'm still a little bit disappointed with this Triceratops because it represents the Nasutoceratops in the movie, and instead of making an updated Nasutoceratops, which all they really had to do is just make an updated head mold, that's all that needed to happen. Instead, we got this Triceratops. It's a really, really good Triceratops, but it's a B for me because it is still just a little bit of a letdown that there was no Nasutoceratops, and I think that would have been so easy and so much better for Lego to make than just coming out with another Triceratops. I'm glad we have it. We needed more Triceratops, but when looking at the whole scheme of things here, I can't give it an A because we have it in place of a Nasuto, and I want the Nasuto. All right, we have the Quetzalcoatlus, and love this dinosaur. They did a good job with it. I definitely cannot give it an S though. I'd like to give it an A or a B. I'm kind of torn here. I really like this dinosaur. It's good, but is it amazing? It parts of it, yes. Parts of it, no. I mean, you can't move the feet at all, which we can't with our regular Pteranodons either. However, with this Quetzalcoatlus being so much bigger, it would have been really nice to be able to move those feet. You can move the wings up and down, and then you can rotate them, but you can't do anything other than that. So it's it makes it a little bit awkward to display, and I think I'm gonna have to go with the B there because it looks good in one pose. But then if you try to move it at all, you can move the wings forward, you can move them back, but you have to fold them up and turn them. They really needed to have another level of mobility with the wings, and then they really needed to have a way to perch this dino up with the legs. I think that's just a miss. That would have made this dinosaur so much better, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and give it a B. All right, we have the Ankylosaurus, and if you know me, I love this Ankylosaurus. They kind of just set a new standard for me when it comes to Lego dinosaurs. I love the tail, the fact that you can just whip the tail around. I mean, that is absolutely necessary. I'm gonna give this one an S just because it's the complete package here. It's got mobility with all the legs. It's got that awesome movement with the tail. It's a great looking mold too. Size wise, it's pretty darn good. And then you've got the nice little head. The shaping is just great here, and I hope we see more Ankylosauruses in the future and more armored dinosaurs as well. All right, so coming up next, we have the Atrociraptors. We have two different colors. We've got the orange version and the white version, and I like the size. I think the size is pretty darn good. It's, with this one and the Dilophosaurus, there's kind of this new updated size position for Lego dinosaurs, so I like that about it. I think I'm gonna have to give this one a B, and its friend over here, the white version, I think I'm gonna have to give a C, mainly because there is no mobility at all. You can only open the mouth, which is nice, but you're stuck with this pose. All of it's good, all of it's great, right? The shaping is great, the arms, the feet, the colors are great. I'm putting the orange one above the white one just based off of the colors. I like that orange version better than the white version. That's just preference, though. I think you could interchange that however you want. However, the one thing that for all of that, that's so great, the lack of mobility really hurts this. I mean, you can only open the mouth. At very least, if we could move the legs, that would be great. Or if we can move the arms. I know they were able to make the T-Rex from Toy Story move his arms, and he was a similar size as this. So I know there's a way that they can do it. And I just hope Lego kind of figures it out for these updated molds, because that would definitely make these a lot better in my opinion. And I have to go with the same story with the Pyroraptor. I'm going to put the Pyroraptor a little bit higher though. It's really good. Love the coloring, love the shaping, love what they were able to do with that tail, but it can't be an S tier for me because of movement and mobility. If this thing can move any other part other than that mouth, this would be a S tier for me. Great size, great color, amazing shaping. It's just the lack of mobility here when you're comparing these to other dinosaurs that can move. I can't give it anything higher than an A. All right, so up next we have the Gallimimus here, and I know what you're thinking. This is a Coelophysis. Yes, that is correct. But what Lego did was they threw it in a poly bag and they called it a Gallimimus. So I have to look at this as a Lego Gallimimus, and this is a D tier. If I had an F tier, this would definitely be it. This is the worst Lego dinosaur that I think we've gotten from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. It's just pretty darn bad. It is not a Gallimimus at all. I know it's been something else before, but it's just a rehash, a reuse, and then they just slapped a different name on it, and it is just so not that. It's a D. We got a long video. Enough said on that. Let's go to the updated version of the Gallimimus, and I do like this version of the Gallimimus. I believe it uses the same arms there from the Carnotaurus, which I kind of find funny, and then it uses that Velociraptor body, and it's got an updated head, and that kind of reuses some of the legs too from like the Stygimoloch and whatnot. I really like the Gallimimus. It's pretty close to perfect. I think the body might be a little bit too chunky or too long. There's just something off with the proportions, but overall I think it's really solid. I think the only thing I dislike about it is the fact that we did not get it in more sets, and you know, if you wanted to get a herd of Gallimimuses, you had to buy multiple $50 sets, or I think it was even $60 sets. So just that price point alone kind of turns me off from this dinosaur in terms of like not having enough out there to really do what you need to do with. So I hope we get more Gallimimuses and different colors. I think that would be great. But overall, just a really solid dinosaur mold from Lego. All right, and then we have the Stygimoloch, and the Stygi is pretty perfect too. I mean, there's nothing like really major wrong with the Stygi. It's a solid dinosaur. I'm gonna have to give it a B. It's got movement, it's got mobility, right? It reuses that same Velociraptor tail. Actually, I'm gonna put it in C. I'm sorry, I changed my mind on the fly here. This is not scripted. I'm gonna give this a C, and it is just a little bit too big. I think this would be another one that would be really good in that Dilophosaurus size, that updated Dilophosaurus size that we got. I'm gonna put the other Stygi though up here in B. I think that's a good spot for the Stygi in my preferred color. I like this coloring. I like the gray, I'm sorry, the brown, and then the dark brown and the olive color. I think that all looks really good. And that, again, that's just a preference between the two colors. I think you could interchange these, you know, either way. It's that part is subjective. I'm gonna have to give this a B though. And I think that it could be an A if it was that updated Dilophosaurus version, you know, that same scale that we got, or the same scale as the Atrociraptor that you can see right next to it. It would be definitely a little bit better. But again, if it had mobility, it would be. But if we got that same thing, I'd probably put it here in a similar spot. But overall, it's a solid mold. Definitely not perfect, but pretty darn good and respectable. Okay. All right, we got the big daddy or mommy, whatever you want to call him. We got the Indominus Rex, and she is pretty darn good. I like that they weren't afraid to come out with the new one, an updated version, and I've got to give that updated version the slight edge here because of the coloring. I think the metallic coloring is really cool, but what I mostly like is just the gray coloring. The other one had the white color, and that just wasn't right. I will say though that the hands are a little bit different in this one, and I like the other hands better. I like the kind of shaping that they were able to get with these hands, but there's just a little stud that you can click stuff onto. They can't grab onto bars anymore, which I don't quite like. But I think I've had to put the other Indominus here at an A. really, really solid, really respectable, but they've come up with just an updated, slightly better version in terms of coloring, and that is why I'm giving that version the slight edge. But I could argue, either way here, because I do like the printing that was on the original 2015 version a little bit more. I like the metallic printing from the updated one, but I just like that printing style. There's a lot more printing on that other one, so I could kind of argue it any other way, but I think 6 times out of 10 I'd come up with the updated Indominus slightly ahead in the S tier. All right, then we have the Carnotaurus, and the Carnotaurus is a great mold. I think they captured him well. His arms are at like that really nice size. He definitely scales well compared to the other dinosaurs. Maybe slightly too large compared to the T-Rex and the other big ones, but I'm going to put him over here in the A. I think A is really, really good for what he is or what she is. I think the Carnotaurus is great, and I'm going to put Toro right next to her. Obviously, Toro was from the Camp Cretaceous sets, and she's got kind of that scarring on her. I like the updated coloring on this one. But I don't think I can actually really tier them because both coloring is really, really good. It's not a clear difference for me. And then you've also got the fact that one's a named dinosaur versus the other one's just kind of that generic Carnotaurus. So really, really solid dinosaurs. Pretty darn good. Not much improvement that you can make there. Just some nitpicks. All right, so getting into some of the T-Rexes here, we've got our newest T-Rex to the bunch, and I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit quicker because a lot of this is just going to be based off of actual colorings. I like this version of the T-Rex. I really like the coloring. It's not my favorite of the colors. I'm going to put it down here in A. It's just a solid T-Rex in terms of the contrast with the colors. That striping pattern has been very similar for all the ones that we've gotten, but personally for me it's just not my favorite coloring of them. And again, for the T-Rexes, a lot of this is going to be absolutely subjective because a lot of it's going to be surrounding the colors. The T-Rex mold is really, really good though. It's definitely an S tier mold, and that's right where I'm going to put my favorite version of the T-Rex. I'm not sure why this is my favorite version. I mean, I'll tell you why. Is the dark gray on the dark tan and the dark brown. I just really like that like dark but neutral coloring. It makes those teeth pop out so much more. I like that the arms are that kind of different subcolor too. I think a lot of them kind of use that same like schematic of like, okay, you have that kind of secondary color and then we'll make the arms that color. But for me, this one, it just pops a little bit more because that dark tan and that dark gray contrast each other so well. It's just preference. All of these, mold wise could definitely be an S, but then our S tier will be overrun with these T-Rexes. So for me, this is my favorite version of the T-Rex. We have the Fallen Kingdom version. I'm going to have to give her an A as well. She is really good. She came in that T-Rex tracker set. Like the stripes on her. That's good. She's just a solid dinosaur. Again, I like it when they have a little bit more of that contrast. So I'm going to give her an A. I'm going to give the counter part of the Fallen Kingdom T-Rex / the T-Rex tracker T-Rex from the original movie. I'm going to give her a B. Just a little bit too orange for me. It's that, it's that orange color on the dark brown on the nougat. There's just a little too much orange in my opinion, unlike the other dinosaurs here that have a really nice contrast. This one just kind of blends a little bit too much for me. I understand what they were trying to go for here, but it just looks a little bit too orange in my opinion. All right, so then we have the Giganotosaurus. There's a lot that I like about it. It stands very, very menacingly. I liked the shape and the curvature on the back, but the hands are definitely a miss. They used those like regular T-Rex hands here. It should have been a different hand piece because they have 3 claws versus the 2, so that's definitely inaccurate. I'm going to have to give the Giga a B. I liked kind of how that they made her battle worn. That all looks good, but she's just missing, proper hands. So otherwise, she is great. She looks like a menace. They captured that face well. It uses that, I think it's that same Indominus mold, just with some different printing. So it kind of looks like a whole new mold, which I like too. Overall, she's really, really good. But those hands take so much away from her, in my opinion. So I'm going to give her a B. All right, we got my least favorite T-Rex on here. We have the Dominion T-Rex from the Junior set. I like the dark red coloring, actually. I really like that a lot, and I like the olive coloring as well. What I dislike is that bright leaf green color. She's gonna go in a C. She could almost be a D, but I just can't put her down there next to that Dilophosaurus and Gallimimus. The mold itself is proper. The mold is very, very good, right? It's an S tier mold, but the lime leaf green, it's just so vibrant and so distracting. It looks like she ate some radioactive material or something, or is gonna try to glow in the dark. It just really takes away from the dinosaur, in my opinion, and it looks kind of silly. It just stands out, and I just dislike it. All right, we have the exclusive T-Rex, and I was thinking about all these dinosaurs beforehand, and I knew I was gonna have to make kind of a live decision. Again, this is not scripted at all. I'm doing this unscripted, and I still haven't decided if I want to put her A or S. I was hoping I would have figured this out by now. I want to put her S because she just has this legendary status, right? There's only 500 of these dinosaurs that have been produced by Lego, which is, if you've got it, great. But the other part of me, and maybe it's just because I don't have it, hopefully I do one day, but the other part of me is like, I want this T-Rex and I can't get her. But I think, S tier is legendary, right? It's the best of the best. And I think just by default, I have to give this one an S tier. It's the only dinosaur that I don't have. All the video you've been seeing is from my personal collection, right? I've got every one of these dinosaurs except for the Fallen Kingdom exclusive T-Rex, and I will hopefully have it someday, hopefully soon. But I like the coloring. Unlike the T-Rex down here from the original Jurassic World movie, this is more contrasted, right? So it's definitely still got that kind of like orangish glow, right? That yellowish glow, but then it's got some really nice dark contrasting on it, which I like. So I'm just gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna say she's an S. I could defend that she's an A or even a B. I could put her down in a D. I could see somebody doing that just because you can't get her. It's very difficult. She's like, last time I checked, she's like $4,000 in box because A, nobody's taking her out of the box, but B, she's just so exclusive. So I could see somebody be like, well, I love her, I want her, but I can't get her, so it's a D, right? If you can't get your hands on this dinosaur, it's a D. Even the Indominus Rex, right, is $150 or whatever. This is $4,000, and it's just an exclusive, and it's a great dinosaur mold and a great printing. I'm gonna put her up in A just because I am a collector, and this is the dinosaur that you get if you collect Lego dinosaurs, right? So she's definitely legendary status for me. All right, so we have our Pteranodons. And I'm going to have to say, we've gotten quite a few of these. I know we've gotten them in other sets, and we've gotten kind of a couple of repeats of these throughout the years, right? I think this version, the dark red and olive, came out in 2 sets, I believe, and same thing with the dark red and sand blue. But they're pretty darn perfect. I'm gonna give this one an A, just based off the coloring. This one is really, really good coloring. I think it's pretty accurate to what the Pteranodons kind of had, depending on the region where they were found in. That kind of two-tone, that like reddish hue that just kind of turns into the kind of this murky green. And same thing with this red and sand blue one. I'm going to also put that up in A tier as well. I would have actually put both of these S tier if their legs could have moved. I think just having movable legs would make these absolutely perfect. Or what I would also take is little kind of clips on the arm for you could actually clip on things. I think that would have been cool. You got good movement in the wings. I don't think they need any secondary movement. But for me, I just wish you could maybe move the neck more so that you could kind of get different shapes with the head, or you could move the legs so you could kind of perch these up a little bit better, because as it stands right now, everything is almost perfect with them. Definitely A tier. And Lego's reused this. There's no need to update this. The only way I could see Lego updating this would be for leg movement or neck movement. And if it had that, it would definitely be an S, but I understand why they haven't. It's a solid A in my opinion. And then I got the green version, which came in that Gallimimus set. I'm going to put that down here in a B. Again, I like it. I just like the other 2 colors better in my opinion. The one thing that I do really like about this one is they put that kind of dark green as the bottom portion of the beak. I think that's just a little bit kind of just a different, interesting way to get some just different contrast with the face. I like that. I like the coloring. Same thing stands, right? I wish this had leg movement, neck movement. It's a really, really solid piece. But I just like the coloring on the other two better. Now, personally, this is where it gets very subjective. This blue version is my personal favorite color. My favorite color is blue. I love that kind of sand blue and dark blue color mixture. But from all I could tell, the color on this is maybe the least accurate, or not least accurate. It's just these other twos in the A's have the more like prehistoric accurate color scheme on it. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I feel free to. So that's why I'm just kind of edging those other two ones over this one. But again, great mold, right? B is great. B is good. Like, there's nothing wrong with the B tier here. It's a very, very respectable tier, and that's right where this one is gonna lay. All right, so we have some baby dinosaurs up next, and we have the baby Ankylosaurus, and I believe this one was supposed to represent Bumpy. This is the Camp Cretaceous version, and this one's good. I'm gonna put it in a C though, because I think the other baby is great. They're very, very cute dinosaurs. I mean, just look at them. We got two of them very, very recently though, back to back. I would have liked to see a little bit of separation or a little bit of update there. And the other thing that I dislike about them is that they are significantly bigger than the baby velociraptors, but there's no movement here. I think if you could like move that head, right, it could have just been a Technic pin and you just pinned it in there. I think if you, that's all I want. It's just a little bit of head movement. I get that the tail can't move, it's so tiny. Also the legs can't move, they're pretty tiny there too. But I think just being able to just get any sort of slight movement here would have put this up to an A and a B tier respectively. And then it just comes down to color preference. The reason I don't like the teal one, or I like the teal one less than the sand green one, is just because the teal kind of just pops out a little bit more. In my opinion, it's just a little bit more distracting. I really like that earthy, neutral color of the sand green, but a respectable dinosaur nonetheless. All right, so then we have the baby Triceratops, and I do want to actually, I want to put this A, but I think I'm gonna put the baby in B. I don't mind that this one they used a plate for on the top versus a tile, so they have some studs. I mean, a lot of these dinosaurs have studs on the top. That's not why I'm putting in a B. Again, though, I think if it's fair to criticize the baby Ankylosaurus for not having any movement, I think it's fair to criticize this baby Triceratops for not having any movement because it's significantly bigger. It is bigger. It's not significantly bigger, but it is slightly bigger than that Ankylosaurus. And again, I wish this head could move. I think if this head could move, this would be maybe even an S tier, maybe even an A, definitely an A tier. And then this again comes down to color preference. I don't really have a preference either way. In fact, I really like both of these color schemes on them. They're kind of that, more neutral coloring on them, which I really like, versus a kind of like pop out tealish color. As you can see, I'm not really a big fan of that. But what I do really, really like here, and it's kind of that redeeming factor that's maybe making me want to put this in an A, is that you can take out that back just like you can on the horses that Legos produce. And the reason that I like that is because in Jurassic Park, they had that little Triceratops ride with the baby Triceratops, and you could actually recreate that now, right? You could put a little saddle on there, and I just like that. I think that's a nice touch. I don't know if that was Lego's intention or not, but of the dinosaurs, it's the only dinosaur that comes with that. So you can actually definitely make that kind of Triceratops baby back ride from the movie, and I like that. I think that's a really, really nice touch, and it makes this mold a little bit more unique. So I'm kind of wanting to put it in an A. However, you can't move any of it, and I think if that's a critique for the baby Ankylosaurus, I have to have that same critique here, and this is a worse offender at that. So for all of being able to take that back piece off does to support this one being an A tier, not moving is that much more effective because you can't move the head. And I think that there's less of an excuse to not be able to move this head, so it is a B. All right, and then we have the Indoraptor, and the Indoraptor has got to be a S tier for me. Pretty perfect. It's scary. I mean, just look at this thing. It is really, really scary looking, and that's what you wanted, right? I mean, say what you want about the Indoraptor as a whole. I'm not here to critique the movies. I'm here to critique what Lego has done to replicate what was in the movies, right? So yeah, I know it was just another hybrid dinosaur. It was the Indominus Rex 2.0, right? But what Lego did, and Lego's job, is to capture that source material. I'm not critiquing the source material, I'm critiquing how Lego captured that. And for me, the Indoraptor is an S. I mean, it just looks menacing. The arms are perfect. I love that they weren't afraid to just do the all black with that like just little accent line going down it. It looks terrifying, and it is, I don't know how they could make this any better, in my opinion. Perfect Lego dinosaur mold that represents the Indoraptor. Similar story here with the Baryonyx. I've got to give this Baryonyx, the mold is really, really good. You can close the mouth and you can actually stick a little fish out of it, which is a nice touch. The coloring on this first one's good. There's a ton of neck movement, ton of head movement. Size-wise, this scales pretty darn well with like everything else that Lego's created in this universe. You know, it's not overly large or overly small. It's pretty perfect. Like the legs, right? It definitely just fits in kind of that middle sized carnivore really, really well. And I really like what they've done here. This is kind of the gold standard in my mind. Now, with this version of the Baryonyx, I hate it. And there's really one reason. It's the neck. It's the mold, again, it's the same mold. The mold is perfect, but this is where the color kind of becomes really important with a lot of these. And I just dislike the neck and how the bottom mouth jaw is tan, the torso, the bottom is tan, the arms are tan, and then that neck is just green again. And it just interrupts this so much, and it kind of makes it look like he's wearing like a mask or something. I don't know. I just don't like that interruption there in terms of coloring. I wish that was tan. I would have put this a little bit higher, probably A tier. I still like that other color a lot better than this version, but just that part I just really dislike about it. And every time I look at it, I'm just like, bleh, don't like it. All right, so now we have the Spinosaurus itself, and this is another one where I'm kind of teetering between S tier and A tier. Obviously, this dinosaur is not up to the same standards of what we've had from Lego. It's just not, right? I mean, it was made back in the early 2000s, and Lego has done so much more with the dinosaur mold since then. But it kind of stands on its own. It's kind of its own little niche dinosaur. And I want to give it an S tier, but I just, you know, I just can't, because it, you know, the face is wrong, the tail's a little bit too wide. But I'm gonna go with a respectable A tier here. You know, if I was just subjectively looking at this and comparing mold to mold here, it'd be lower. But the fact that this Spinosaurus is still even in the conversation today is nice, right? And there's parts of it that do stand up on its own, specifically the details in the print here. I don't know if we've seen a more detailed print from Lego since. I mean, at me in the comments, right? I mean, the spine is totally, you got this really fine details in it. The head's got some details, that torso's got some details, the legs have so much details. It just, the details that they were able to capture on this print are second to none. Otherwise, I think I would have put this in a B, right? Or even a C if it was just the plain old Spinosaurus. It might even be in the D. But they were just able to get so many awesome printed details that I just haven't seen that quality of printing from Lego in any of these other dinosaurs. I mean, sure, there's some that are close. The Indominus is pretty close. They've obviously done a lot more dual molding now, but this just, the print, I can't say enough about it. It's phenomenal. I'm going to put it in an A, more of an homage to this dinosaur than anything else, right? The fact that it still gets talked about to this day has to say something about its status as a mold in this community.
Hey YouTube, Future Grinch here, and I actually forgot a dinosaur. I promised myself I wouldn't do that. I double and even triple checked, and it turns out that I still did. My apologies for that. I forgot the green Velociraptor from the Junior's Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom set. So what I've done is I've got an updated just image of my tier list here, and I've actually put this dinosaur in the C tier. Similar to the leaf green Tyrannosaurus Rex, the mold itself is perfect, but the coloring is just really, really bad in my opinion. I really don't like the vibrant colored dinosaurs, and this is no exception. The reason it's a C though and not a D like the Dilophosaurus and the Gallimimus is because the mold on its own is just that good to make it go up one tier for me. I can't say it's a bad dinosaur, I just really, really dislike the coloring on this one. Now back to the regular video.
That is my list. I will link the tier list maker link in the description of this video if you want to follow along and create your own dinosaur tier list. Obviously, this was my opinion. A lot of this is coming down to my subjective preference of colors and from some of the research that I did on what the accurate colors would have been and really looking at the source material for what these dinosaurs should have looked like in Lego form. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and joining in the conversation in the comments section below. Link your tier list for me. Let me see what your tier list is. I'm definitely curious to see. I'm sure I have one or two that are probably higher than a few people would have, or one or two that are probably lower than a few people would have. We are all entitled to our own preferences and opinions. Let me know what yours is in the comments section below. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.